thank you guys this morning for worshiping. It was amazing. It's always better when we worship together, right? I love, those times where I'm alone and I worship God and His creation. But this is better. This is better. Well, I got a treat for you this morning. One of my great friends. He's a life coach to me. Sometimes like a dad to me. This guy's seen me at my worst, and he's still waiting for my best, right? But I know that he believes in me and has supported me in so many ways. And this he's older, much older than me, much wiser than me. And so I had him come and speak today because I wanted to be able to enjoy this week with my wife last week, playing John Wayne out west at a dude ranch. And it was so amazing to be able to have that time with my wife and see her on a horse as well. She overcame some of her fears this week, and she became a cowgirl this week. It was incredible to see her just tackle that fear and the courage that she had to ride a horse up in the backcountry. It was very exciting. So thank you for letting us do that. Thank you for letting us take a week and focus on us. And Scott, thank you for coming today so that I didn't have to think about teaching this morning. But we're going to be tackling a subject this morning that we're all thinking about. Did you guys know that there's an election this year? I don't know if you've seen that on the news. Has it been in the news? I don't know if you guys knew that or have seen that or not. So Scott's going to address Scott the mic, and you guys, he's better equipped to address than I am. And so let me just give Scott the mic, and you guys listen to him and be encouraged by him. And I really believe in his approach this morning. So let's learn together.
Thank you, Trent. Yes, I am older, and I won't take advantage of your youthfulness and what you don't know. So, with that said, yes, we have an election. How many more days until the 38? Whoa, okay. So I would like to do a little bit of survey, and I want you all to play along. So your hand needs to go up at one of these questions. First question: how many of you really enjoy all the drama and the chaos that is within this election? Can I see your hand? Oh, there's a few of you. Okay, there's a few of you. How many of you would say you don't like the drama and the chaos? You don't like it. In fact, you might even say, I hate all the drama, all that negativity, all the negative ads. How many of you would say that you just really hate that? A few more. How many of you, when you go to the water cooler at work or a party or with somebody, you just like to bring it up and get everybody mad? Is there anybody like that? Okay, that's my son right down front, right? Yeah. How many of you just avoid at all costs talking about the election or what's going on altogether? Is there anybody like that? Yep. Okay, all right. So, last question. Be honest. We're in church. How many of you believe that preachers and churches should just stay out of politics? Okay, well, there's a few of you. There's a few of you like that. So today, I'm going to do my best to thoroughly offend everybody. So, lock the door in the back, and here we go. Okay. Now, so we've got 38 days before this election. We've got an opportunity as Christians, as Christ followers, to be able to get this right, and we can do this if we really want to. And what I'm going to say is that we need to be able to put our faith in front of our politics, that we need to be able to put our Christian values ahead of being a Republican, to be able to put our Christian priorities in front of being a Democrat or a libertarian. Because this is what I know. And some of us here, we get so amped up, or when the election and people start talking about that election, you get so amped up, there's so much emotion that's going on. It's like, oh, I just want this over, or you want your opinion to be heard so much. But this is what I know about all of us here. Something could happen in your life that would make this election just go on the back burner. Yeah, maybe you've got a story around this. Somebody you know is in the hospital. And all of a sudden, this election doesn't mean anything to them. I mean, you go to the hospital and they're not saying, oh, would you please just read me the Declaration of Independence? They're not saying that, right? So I do know that something could happen in all of our lives where we could put all this election chaos, all this drama behind us. And what I want us to do is just for the next few moments to be able to get a better or a clearer perspective on what we would say is our election coming up. So some of you are saying, well, Scott, I'm so glad that you're doing this because my faith and my political views, they go right hand in hand. I'm a Christian, so obviously I'd be a Republican, right? Jesus was right. God is right. Jesus is going to sit on the right hand of the throne of God, right? Everything goes better with Jesus. So, of course, Jesus has to be a Republican. And then of course, there's this story about, Jesus, he's walking through the town, and there's this tax collector. In other words, for tax collector is publican, like as in Republican. So, obviously, Jesus was a Republican. And, if you're a Democrat right now, you're saying, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Jesus was a health care dispensing machine. Everywhere he went, he healed people. They lined up for hours and hours to get healed. And how much did he charge them? 0. And then if you'd follow Jesus and you go out in the country and he'd be preaching and he was long-winded. I won't be that long-winded today. But he would get long-winded and he would feed everybody for free. Right. So clearly and another thing that Jesus did? He was always getting on to rich people to give their money away, wasn't he? So clearly Jesus was a Democrat. It's obvious. If you look at the life of Jesus, but if you're a libertarian, you're going, really? Really? There's this one verse that a lot of the politicians use today, and you know it. I'll let you finish it. You shall know the truth, and the truth will set you as in liberated, right? So clearly. And Paul was writing to the Thessalonians, people of Thessalonica, and he was writing, and he said, it's in the Bible, he says, do your work well and mind your own business, right? So there it is, mind your own business, personally, politically, internationally. So Jesus was clearly a libertarian, right? Have I offended everybody? Did I leave anybody out? So it's amazing. When you come into the political season, it's amazing how politicians will try to reel Jesus in to find an obscure verse or something to get Jesus on their side because they want to be right or they want the votes of Christians. So for us here, we've got to be able to say, we need to understand as Christ followers, what is our responsibility? And our responsibility, I believe, as we're going to go through the scriptures here in just a few moments to be able to see, is that this is what's really important, is that we put our faith first and our political views second. And this means more than just quoting a Bible verse first and our politics second. It means more than just reading the Bible or reading what Jesus says. It means that we actually have to do something to get this thing right. And so we want to look at Jesus and what did Jesus do? And without a doubt, Jesus always did what was right for people. Look at this here. Can you go to the next slide there for me? We can debate what's best for people. And we really should. And whatever bills before Congress, we need to debate that. Because it's important, because we want to be able to do what's best for people, right? So we can debate what's best for people, and we should, but we cannot debate what's best for people is what's best. Every time that Jesus would really get on somebody, especially with the Pharisees, he would always say, you guys are making all these laws and making it hard on the people. Wherever Jesus went, he was for the people. And by the way, Jesus didn't come to take sides, did he? He came to take over. So we just need to get that in our mind. So as we're going to launch into the scriptures here in just one moment, let me give you some background on what's going on. We have our politics, and with 38 days left, it's amazing. When they take the surveys, the majority of Americans don't like either candidate. I'm thinking, well, this is really interesting. How did all this happen? But if we would transport back into Jesus' day, the Jewish people wanted to be free. And who was controlling Israel at the time? It was the Romans. Let me tell you, the Jewish people did not like the Romans. In fact, if you were a Jew and you crossed from the Romans, they would just take you out and plant you on a tree and crucify you. In fact, the Romans would crucify hundreds of people all around Jerusalem. So politically, there's a lot of turmoil going on. And Jesus was saying, people were saying, hey, Jesus is the Messiah. Well, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, what did they think? The Messiah will come and he will rule. He will kick out the Romans. Oh, it'll be great. If Jesus really is the Messiah, politically, where do you line up, Jesus? Are you going to line up with the Pharisees or the Sadducees, religious, or is it going to be the Romans? Who are you going to line up with? People are always asking him that question. And so we're going to look at this in Matthew chapter 22. Matthew chapter 22. Oh, this is such a beautiful verse. So you know the political theme of what's going on. And so a group of Pharisees. Now, by the way, listen to this. The Pharisees did not have an army, but they did have a police force. The Pharisees did not have an army, but they did have a jail, right? We know that. The Pharisees and Sadducees, they were a political arm of the Jewish religion of what was going on there. So here within this question, you can hear all the politics that's going on. Okay? And so, Matthew 25 or 22. So one of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question. You could imagine, the great crowd of people around him, and they're saying, "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Now, there's over 600 laws of how the Jewish people should rule their life. And so Jesus is saying, or these people are asking Jesus, what is the number one rule? What is the number one law? What is the most important of all of them? Okay, you're going to take 600 of them, boil them down just to one. And Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all of your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your mind. And this is the first and greatest commandment." And he goes on, but watch this right here. Jesus says, "I want you to love God with all of your what? Heart, soul, and mind." And that's something that happens on your inside, isn't it? And you know what? There's a lot of wiggle room here, isn't there? If you'd go to a candidate today and say, "Do you love Jesus?" What would they say? If you'd say, "Do you love God?" They're going to go, "Yeah." I mean, they're not going to, and how would you be to judge that? Because that's an inside thing. There's a lot of wiggle room right here, right? So Jesus is saying, love God with everything that's in you. And, he didn't even take a breath. In other words, he was saying, hold your question. Look at this, verse 39. "And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself." Oh, Jesus, why'd you say that? Because I really like to love God on the inside, and I want to treat my neighbor like he treats me. In fact, I want to treat my neighbor's kids like the way he treats my kids. Tit for tat. That's how it really should be, right? And Jesus goes, no. Get this right. Get this right. I know you don't like Rome and you know all these different things, but Jesus says, love God with all of your heart. But then, watch this. It's an expression of who you are. If you really love God, it's an expression of who you are to what? Love your neighbor as yourself. In verse 40, this is powerful. He goes, all the law and the prophets hang or hinge or are contingent. Have you ever read through the prophets? All those laws, he kind of just gives, my mind goes, no, okay, get all these laws. And Jesus says, but all these, they hinge on these two things, on these two commandments. And these two commandments are what? Love God with your heart, and then love other people. Love God with your heart. Well, there's wiggle room in that. In fact, I can say to a lot of you, do you love God? And you say, oh, yeah, I love God. With all of your heart? Yeah, I love God with all of my heart. Well, do you love others as yourself? Ooh, that's kind of putting the test to it, the medal, isn't it? And that's why Jesus says, you can take all of the laws. In fact, this was kind of Jesus' way of saying, if you don't remember anything else I ever say, remember this. Love God and love other people. And so we can debate, coming this political season, we can debate on which candidate would be the best for America. But we can't debate that what is really best is what's best for people. And that's what Jesus, when you look at his life, that's what Jesus did over and over and over again. And hey, come on. If you're a Christ follower and you know that heaven is your home, we ought to be the most composed and the most confident people that we could possibly become. And so during this time, if we know that heaven's our home and that God's got everything figured out, during this political season, this is what I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to be a student and not a critic. Be a student and not a critic. God is the God of infinite wisdom, right? So, have you been sitting down maybe at the dinner table and there's the relatives or their friends around there, and you begin to get in this political debate and you begin to talk politics and your blood's beginning to get boiling up, and you're just getting so amped up, you're going, oh man. And then all of a sudden in your mind you're saying, I can't believe they think this way. I can't believe they would protest. I can't believe they would march. I can't believe they would forward me that email. I can't believe. Well, this is what I know. there's something that you don't know, isn't there? So become a student, not a critic. To become a student and not a critic. So we're gonna jump back to what Jesus was saying in just a minute, but I would like to make this political season. I would like for us to be able to make this very, very practical for us as Christ followers, what we should be. So during that time when things are getting really amped up, if there's something that really bugs you, there is something that you don't know. When you say, I can't believe that you would vote for that person, there's something that you don't know, right? So we need to be able to be a student, to be able to ask them a question, to be able to figure out why. And here it is. If you're afraid to ask them a question, if you're afraid to get into asking why they have that point of view, either you are too arrogant or you're too insecure. It's either one or the other. But I mean, hey, if Christ has all this figured out and we are Christ followers, here's a list of 4 questions I'm going to give you. You might want to jot these down. You might like all 4 of them. You may not like all of them. Maybe you'll just use one of them when it comes to this, comes to Monday, and you get hit with all this policy stuff. But here's the first question. You might just want to ask them. When you get in that hot debate and it's going back and forth, to ask them this question: what led you to that view? What led you to that view? There is a process, and when they give you the view, you're just getting the very end of a whole thought process. Watch this. The answer is the caboose to the train of thought, and you should at least know what the engine is that's driving that process. Because this is what we want to actually do as Christ followers. We want to have people invite us into their life to hear their story. I mean, hey, some of you were once a Republican, and now you're a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian. You might have changed. Some of you grew up and you're saying, well, you know, my great-great-grandfather was a Democrat, my grandfather was a Democrat, my dad was a Democrat, so I'm a Democrat. Man, you need to hear that story. Maybe you go, well, my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, he was in the Civil War, and he fought for the Confederates, so of course Isn't it amazing, once you hear the story of somebody, how that pressure goes down, that tension goes down, and you begin to hear, and all of a sudden it's not about their view, all of a sudden they invite you in and it's about their life. Because this is what I know about you and me. If we're Christ followers, we know that there's a life afterwards, right? And this election cycle, in 2 more years, we're not going to be thinking about it. And all that angst that we're feeling right now, we're not going to feel it at all. But if you get invited into someone's life and you know a little bit about their story, you might have a chance to build a bridge, a relationship to them, so you can share Jesus Christ with them. So what led you to that view? You want to know all of their thoughts. Number 2. Have you always believed this way? That's a good question. Have you always believed this way? What's the process? How did that happen? Tell me your story. So now you're not taking all this politics and going me against you, you against me, and all that sort of stuff. But all of a sudden you want to hear their story. All of a sudden it begins getting personal with them. And this is what I know. It's hard to stay mad at somebody when you know their personal story. It's hard to be really upset with them when you understand the process of why they believe like they believe. And the third question, this is a little snarky, if you want to go there. It says, if you're talking about, Senator, have you ever met them? Do you know them personally? And they'll probably say, no. And you just simply say, oh. Don't say anything else, oh. So you know them personally, right? No, And then the 4th question, this is the question that you guys may not like at all. This might be the question you say, if Scott's speaking again, let me know because I'm not coming back. But question number 4, you might want to say, I get most of my information from the media. How about you? And they'll probably say, yeah. And then you can say, well, we're probably both marginally knowledgeable. We probably really don't know what the real truth really is out there. And you can just feel the tension begin to go down within the room. Because this is what I know. If you watch CNN, you get one view. If you watch Fox News, you get another view. CBS, British Network, you go back and forth. I'm sad to say that, journalism, there's not a whole lot of journalism anymore out there. Okay, it's more of opinion, but wherever you're getting it, you're getting your information from the media, from people who want to influence you, and we may not really know what's really true, so we need to be able to stay as curious as we possibly can. So, let me say this. Should you have an opinion? Yes. you should have an opinion. It's good to have an opinion. You should know politically, you should know what you believe and why you believe it, okay? Should you argue your point politically? Yes. Argue a point? Yes. When it's right, the right time to be able to argue the point, because there's some things that somebody might need to learn from you. To argue that point? Yes, that's really good to do. Listen to this. To appreciate what others may teach us? Yes. And to do that, you have to be willing to listen to their story. To listen to their story. But to make a point at the expense of influence? Never. To make a point at the expense of influence, we should never do that. 6 months from now, there's a crisis in their life. A year from now, all of a sudden, they've got a spiritual question, but they can't invite you in. They cannot ask you what that question. Their marriage begins to fall apart and they want to come to somebody. They're not going to come to you. Why? Because you burn that bridge. You burn that bridge. You spent all that energy on politics when 2 more years, it doesn't really matter anymore. In fact, can I just say this? Of course I can say this. I'm up here. I got the mic, right? So I can say this, right? Your opinion doesn't really matter. Your opinion doesn't matter. It's better than that. Your vote matters. So why would you push your opinion on somebody when you can and burn that bridge of influence when you can vote and your vote matters? And all you have to do is step outside of the United States and go to some of these third world countries where you don't have a vote. And it doesn't matter what you say. Somebody else is going to tell you what to do and when you can do it. And you will really appreciate what we have in America, that we have the right to vote. In fact, if you're here today and you're saying, well, I'm not going to vote for anybody. No, that's a vote. You need to be aware. You need to be able to vote your conscience. You do need to vote. But to argue at the expense of burning the bridge of a relationship, oh, man, we just never want to be able to do that. Jeopardize a relationship over politics. Why would you want to do that when you can vote? Your vote is more important than losing a relationship. In Matthew chapter 5, Jesus says, "You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again?" Can I kind of translate that into the political season? You are supposed to have a flavorful life where people desire to be around you. But if you're just going to burn, if you're just going to have so much politics, so much angst over something that's really not going to matter when it comes to eternity, you're going to lose your ability to be salt. Okay? It's no longer good. It's thrown away. And then it says, you are the light of the world. In other words, we should be able to light that path. And if you're a Christ follower, do you want to light the path to a political party, or do you want to light that path to Jesus? That's your decision today. That's your decision. And some of you have got a story over this. Some of you have lost relationships over politics because you believe so much in your opinion. And you should believe it wholeheartedly, strong enough to vote, because your vote does matter. But that relationship disappeared because of your political persuasion. And you don't have the ability any longer to be able to influence them to be salt and light in their life. Jeopardize a relationship over politics? Never. You don't need to do that. You can vote. You can vote. Because we can argue a lot of different things, but what's best, here it is, what's best for people is Jesus. And Jesus didn't come to take sides. He came to take, let me say that again. Help me with that, finishing that last sentence. Jesus didn't come to take sides. He came to take over. To take over. I am not telling you to vote one political persuasion or for one candidate or the other. I am saying you should vote. But when it comes down to your politics, and just in a few more months, it's not really going to matter anymore. Things are going to be decided. We do know this. that you and me and everybody in this room, all of your friends, that we're going to live forever somewhere. We'll live forever somewhere, heaven or hell. And our calling is far greater than being a Democrat or Republican or Libertarian. Our calling is to reconcile people to each other. It's to reconcile people to God. So why would we jeopardize that? We shouldn't. Have an opinion? Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is we as Christ followers have a higher calling. And the calling is to be a light for Jesus Christ, to influence this world for what is good, what's pure, and what's righteous. And that is Jesus. You know, I can imagine as all the Pharisees around, they're saying, okay, Jesus, we're going to ask you this question. And I wonder if some of them are probably going to say, man, he's probably going to be for the Romans. Some probably thought he said, I'm going to be for the Pharisees or the Sadducees. But Jesus just did what was right for people. And he goes, love God with all of your heart. And then demonstrate that by loving other people as you would love yourself. So let me ask you, during this time of turmoil and craziness and chaos that's going on, can we just when you get around those people, can you just let that tension go out of the room a little bit? Can you become curious, become a student, not a critic? Can you begin to ask them a few questions to get invited into their life? Because this is what I know. You'll want to get invited into their life another time when there's another question that's far more important than who's going to be the next president. Because that question could be, where am I going to spend eternity? And you want to be able to have that influence. I want to have that influence. So during this political season, you can't get so wrapped up into all the politics and forget that we need to put our faith first. More than just verses, we have to do something. We have to do what's best for these people that we fellowship with, that are around us, at work, at home, our kids. Would you bow your head? And I'd like to be able to pray for us. I know that politics can just amp us up to the point where we can't see anything else except for our viewpoint. And I'm certainly not saying that you should not have a viewpoint. I am certainly saying have your viewpoint. Discuss it with other people. But not at the expense of a relationship. This is a great time to get invited into their life for the time that they really need you, for things that are really important. Like, how do I deal with my kids? How do I deal with my family? What about heaven? I want to go there one day. How can I? You want those bridges to be wide open so that opportunity will be able to be there for you on that. So maybe today, you're one of those people kind of like me. I get so amped up on that I just want to shout from the rooftop what I believe. And yet, when I burn those bridges, I feel so bad because I know what that future looks like with that person. Maybe you're like that today. You need to change your thoughts on that. People is what's really important. And your opinion really doesn't matter. Your vote matters. So during this time, can we not just be curious? Can we not find an inroad into their life so we can get to that next level with them on a personal level and talk to them about our Lord and our Savior, Jesus Christ? Maybe you're here, and like the majority of us, we just don't like all this political drama. Well, maybe you can engage in some of that drama with other people and just ask them one of those questions. What led you to this view? Tell me more. Have you always believed that way? Where do you get your information? Oh. Learn a little bit about their story, because if they invite you in on that, maybe they're going to invite you in on that next question that's going to come. And it will come. You need to be prepared and be ready for that. So maybe you just need to make that decision during this political season to do what Jesus did. And that is that he always did what was best for people. He always sidetracked politics and said, people. Who do we pay taxes to? And Jesus said, well, if it's got Caesar's name on it, give it to him. But if it's got God's name on it, give it to him. God was always talking about doing the best for people. So maybe you just need to make that choice today. Maybe you just need to make that decision. If that's you, you can do it right where you're sitting. In just a moment, we'll stand and we'll sing a song. And this is a time what we call invitation. It's simply a time for you, if you'd like, to come, and you can come forward and pray. Trent and other people will be here, and they'll just simply pray with you. Or you can make the decision in your seat. Either way, the most important thing is this, is that we do what's right for people. And Jesus didn't come to take sides. He came to take over. Will you be ready when your friend, your family member, somebody that you work with, will you be ready? Because they've invited you in once, and they can invite you in again. Will you be ready to tell them the good news about Jesus? Would you stand with me? I'm going to pray, and then we're going to sing a song. If you'd like to come forward and be able to pray with somebody, you're more than welcome. If you want to just make that decision at your seat, you're more than welcome to do that. Pray with me if you would. Father, at the end of the day, I am so glad that you've got all this figured out. I'm glad that you see the beginning and the end, and you know who's going to be president and congressperson and all that, Lord. I'm glad that you know that. Lord, I'm glad that there's not a panic button up in heaven, and everything is going to go according to your plan. Father, sometimes I get so anxious when I watch the news. And I get so upset. Lord, I want to shout it from the rooftop of what I believe to try to convince other people. Lord, I know that I can burn those bridges pretty easily. Father, for all of us here, help us to do what your son Jesus did. That's what's best for people. Help us to be a curious people. And Lord, this is a great opportunity for a lot of us here to be able to get invited into somebody else's life and wait for the opportunity to be able to bring you with us. So, Father, whatever the decisions are that we need to make as a group of people, I just would pray that we would be, as a church here, that we'd be open, we'd be honest, and make the choices that we need to make, and maybe that we would do life just a little bit differently. So, Father, this is my prayer for these people here today and for me. In Jesus' name, amen.